Well, Trump's State Department is freezing immigrant visa processing for 75 countries to clamp down on applicants it deems likely to become to get on public assistance. Really? The directive instructs embassies and consulate and consulates to halt decisions beginning January 21st, while the department reassesses its vetting procedures under existing immigration law. Now, let me walk you all through these countries. There we go, right here. Afghanistan, Albania, Algeria, Antigua and Barbuda, Armenia, Azerbaijan, the Bahamas, Bangladesh, Barbados, black, Belarus, Belize, Bhutan, Bosnia, Brazil, a lot of black, Burma, Cambodia, Cameroon, black, Cape Verde, black, Colombia, Cote d'Ivoire, black. Keep going. Let's see. Cuba, Democratic Republic of the Congo, black. Dominica, Egypt, yeah, they black too. Eritrea, black. Ethiopia, black. Fiji, Gambia, black. Georgia, Ghana, real black. Guatemala, Guinea, black. Haiti, black. Iran, Iraq, Jamaica, very black. Jordan, Kazakhstan, Kosovo, Kuwait, Kyrgyzstan, Laos, Lebanon, Liberia, black, Libya, black, Macedonia, Moldova, Mongolia, Montenegro, Morocco, Nepal, Nicaragua, Nigeria, black, Pakistan, Republic of the Congo, black, Russia, Rwanda, black, St. Kitts and Nevis, black, St. Lucia, yep, black, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, black, Senegal, black, Sierra Leone, black, Somalia, black, South Sudan, black, Syria, Tanzania, black, Thailand, Togo, black, Tunisia, Uganda, black, Uruguay, Uzbekistan, Yemen. Yeah, that's all. So it's like, yeah, we ain't trapped. Now y'all know that ain't no Denmark, ain't no Sweden, because Trump has made clear that, I really want them white folks in the country. Nana June, the executive director of the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, joins us right now. I'm glad to have you on the show. Now, we've been making this whole thing clear, and we said it. Donald Trump, MAGA, and Republicans, they want white people. My book is called White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. They want a white country. They are scared to death of black people and Latinos and Asian Americans and Native Americans being the majority in this country. So they're like, yo, let's shut this thing down. So let's see, white people ain't having babies. So let's see if we can try to keep all them out and try to import as many white people as possible to keep us in power.
Including the white Afrikaners.
Yeah.
Let's import them
so,
too,
yeah,
right?
so they don't mind. They like South
anger.
African. The black ones, y'all stay. We want the white ones.
Absolutely. And that's significant, right? And, thank you, first of all, for having me on. Thank you for talking about this topic. It's really important. What we see here is on top of about 3 levels of travel ban that have already occurred. The first travel ban was blackadier than that, probably about 85 to 90% of the countries coming from the continent of Africa and the Caribbean. Then, as you know, they added this, they had the partially restricted that also was majority black, including some of those countries you see right there. Then they added the $15,000 bond. So imagine if you wanted to go to France and you decided, hey, I want to go to France, and France says no problem, but you've got to put up $15,000 just as a bond to come into the country, which of course acts as its own ban. And then we see what's happening here on the falsity, of course, that somehow people from these countries are the people that end up on public assistance. We know what's happening here. These are all a form of black ban. They may have some other folks, other sprinkles on top, but at the end, that's really what this is about. Not surprising if we think about the initial immigration policies, the initial bans back in the 1700s. People think that the first people excluded were Chinese, but the first people excluded actually were Haitians, because Haitians were free, right? They freed themselves and said, we want to go around the world, including the United States. And the United States quickly banned Haiti, banned Haitians from coming into the country. And what we're seeing here, as with a lot of other things this regime is doing, they are looking into the past and sometimes into the hundreds of years past to see how they can use those same racist, authoritarian, violent policies right now in the present to achieve those same goals that they've always wanted to achieve. The impossible goal they'll never achieve of turning the United States into a white country.
And this is what I've said. So, it's a lot. You got these folks call themselves Foundational Black Americans, FBA, B1, all these different ADOS, all these different titles they use. And they have been, a lot of them being vehemently anti-Black immigrant. And I keep trying to remind them, first of all, if you look at the numbers, first of all, 10% of the African American population in the United States are Black immigrants. So understand, you start going along with this policy, you're talking about, losing 3 to 4 million people going out of this country, and that's going to impact voting numbers. That's going to impact a whole lot in a lot of our cities. Folk ain't understanding that. So it's like, if y'all want to play the game of trying to be vehemently anti-immigrant like the white folks, all you're doing is hurting yourself.
Absolutely.
And trust me,
when
and
you look at
they're
the
going to be real mad. I just said that. So they're going to come with all the videos, but they can all kiss my ass. Go ahead.
But certainly, when you think about also the children, people like myself who are born of Black folks born outside, now all of a sudden you get to 1 in every 5 Black people being either a foreign-born Black person or child of a foreign-born Black person. That does not include my son. Shout out to him. He turned 30 yesterday. And so now you have a 3rd generation of folks, right?
No.
And
Hold on. I want to stay right there. Because that's critically important. So what you're saying, and again, this is the thing that these people, this is when you're stuck on stupid and you don't pay attention. So I'm just going to use, so you take Eric Holder, who was the Attorney General, Barbados. You take Colin Powell. You take Shirley Chisholm. I can go Stokely Carmichael. I can go Harry Belafonte. I can name a whole host of folk today that when you start, Wes Moore, governor of Maryland. So, and they love yelling tethers. So the number you just gave, so what you're saying is that 20% of African Americans are children of Black immigrants. You said 1 in 5.
What I'm saying is 20%. 1 in 5 are either foreign born, so they're either Shirley Chisholm and Kwame Ture, right, born outside this country, or they're children of people born outside this country, such as myself, such as Wes Moore, some of the other names.
So that's 20% of the 40 million.
20%. Who gets rid of 20% of their population?
So that's 8 million.
Right.
So for all these people who keep yelling tethers and everything, they have no clue how many people who are Black you about to wipe out in New York City. Houston has the largest Nigerian population in the country. So we start going around, it's like, okay, so what you just laid out is that's 20% of the 40 million Black people. So the FBA, ADOS, those folks, what they're saying is, let's send away 8 million African Americans. Gotcha. Go ahead.
And the thing to think about is that when you look at white people, what did white people do, Roland, historically? They increased the definition of whiteness, right? Everybody wasn't white. They had a bad name for everybody. Okay, they had a bad name for the French people, the German people, the Greek people,
the Irish,
Italians,
the
Spanish
Polish,
people,
all of
Irish
them.
people. They said these people are not white. And then they looked to their left and they saw the Native American. They looked to their right. They saw the Black folks. They saw the incoming brown folks, Asian folks. They said, oh, no,
and
come on, welcome to the club. And they
went, come here.
People in.
Come here. Come on. Y'all us. Y'all one of us.
And at a time in which they are attacking us at every level, bringing in body snatchers with every type of identity, from the FBI to the ATF to ICE to the CBP to the Postal Police, and that's who's out here in LA, in Memphis, in Chicago, in Minneapolis right now, in Charlotte. Like, it's not just immigration enforcement. That doesn't exist. We call it the invasion of the body snatchers at Baji. This is all of them. At a time when we should be standing up together to prevent our people from being snatched, right? Instead, by increasing our numbers and saying, hey, we're here together. Instead, we have people that are supporting that effort, who are trying to divide people and trying to separate people, which is not going to be helpful, particularly with the ban. What people, I think about some of these countries, look at a country like Ghana, which is a country that so many people, African Americans included, are going to, are moving to, marrying people, all kinds of stuff. And now I'm getting all these calls from people saying, wait a minute, my friend was coming to visit. I have someone who I was helping that got into university. They can't come. I can't get my fiance over here. Correct, because there's a travel problem, travel bans that are happening, or there's 15,000 that you've got to pay, or in this case they put everyone's applications on hold while they do a so-called review. And all the review is, Roland, is they just want to see, will you give me your minerals? That's it. The review is to see, will we turn over everything in our countries to the billionaires? The review is to see, will we allow ourselves to be a dumping ground for people that this country is illegally, unlawfully, in violation of human rights, deporting? That is what they're trying to do. And you see some countries bent the knee and are still finding themselves on these lists because these types of bullies, these types of gangsters, they never stop pressing you to, put yourself under their foot. Never. And they will not stop until the sovereignty of each and every one of these nations is gone under a Trumpian flag.
Absolutely. They will. That's how they will operate. Good eye panel with questions. Mondale, you first.
Yeah, I appreciate you letting people know that back in 1700, 1790, I think when we had our first restriction of Black people, like you had to be not just free citizen, you had to be a white free person to become a citizen of America. I think people believe that, America is majority white because white people are what America was designed and made by, but they forget that it was immigration policies that created this white flesh on majority of Americans. Can you talk about how America has only had truly about 50 years of free, 14 years before 1790 and 36 years since 1990, where Black people were allowed to immigrate, and talk about what that looks like and how people are shouldn't be surprised that we are back there again?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we look at what those two time periods that you're talking about, where you had immigration policies that were not just absolute, right? That weren't saying you absolutely can't come in, then you did see Black people come in. It's important to point out that it wasn't just free flowing, right? That it was very specific. It was particular folks that they wanted to have come in. Labor is always one of them, right? And one of the things that I talk about is that it cannot be that the only way that Black people can come to this country is in the hull of slave ships or the hull of planes coming in to do work for this country, right? That is not the way that it should be. But that is the biggest way that labor has been allowed. After the 1964 Civil Rights Act, when we had the Immigration and Naturalization Act come out, which was, and the expansion of who could come in, which was directly related to civil rights and the work of Harry Belafonte and others, the numbers of people obviously increased, especially coming from the Caribbean. But we see that often who is allowed in, still in terms of Black people, there's so much more difficulty even to get tourist
Mhm.
visas to come into this country, let alone to get visas to come here and live, reunite with family, etc. What we see happening now is just a resurgence again of those more absolute laws that were keeping Black people out. And I want to point out, because I think it's important in our framing, to also say that the incarceration of Black people, whether it be by the criminal punishment system or the immigration enforcement system, is another way to make this country look whiter than it is, which is always the goal, the perception of the whiteness of this country, even as the actual numbers of white people and their percentages decrease.
And see, the
Now,
thing, actually, so I'm actually asking the question in a second. Rebecca, go.
Sure. I'm going to ask a question about unity. So, my family has been in this country for hundreds of years, and we've been fighting against these same white supremacists and all their descendants. My ancestors have been fighting their ancestors. People like Stokely Carmichael, people like Shirley Chisholm, they were here before 1965 and had a historical understanding of what the fight was in this country. One thing that I have observed, especially not just on social media, but actually in person, as I've helped organize done political organizing in this country, and I've worked with all sorts of populations, including Black immigrant populations, is that unfortunately there has been this myth or this aspiration of model minority that has separated from some of the newer Black immigrants to historical Black folks who have been in this country. So I just want to point out that the conversation is extremely nuanced. It's more than just, there's some folks on YouTube who are just saying, what they're saying. So my question is, how do we make sure that people are on code, meaning that they understand historically what anti-Blackness is in this country, and they understand that cozying it up to white institutions of power, aka cozying up to white people, isn't enough to save them, and that ultimately we're going to have to be in this fight to take down white supremacy in this country once and for all.
Absolutely. And I think there's a couple of things that, Baji, this is part of what we do. Baji was actually started by African Americans, folks from the Caribbean, and folks from the continent. And we're turned 20 this year, but for the first, 10 years at least of our existence, we were led by Gerald Noir, who is an African American from Louisiana, hundreds of years, multiple generation in this country. And the whole point of Baji is we fight for Black migrants and African Americans at the intersection of racial justice and immigrant rights. One piece that we know is about education, right? Right now, if I ask most people, Black people included, tell me about the history of Ghana, even if they're going to Ghana, they have no idea. Tell me about the history of Nigeria, they have no idea. That's not what people generally do when they go to other people's countries. And so that's something that has to happen here. And even as people, sometimes don't speak English and they're forced to figure out how to learn English and to take classes, none of these classes are coming with what does it mean to be Black in America. And one of the things that Baji had started was to go actually to home countries or to other countries and to say, and to have classes that say, so you want to come to America. And one part of that class is about the immigration process, but the other part of the class is about being Black in America. We had Baji say, you learn how to be Black in America from African Americans, from Black Americans. And so it's important to understand that history. And as you said, it's nuanced, right? And so it's important to also understand who you are teaching. What is their background? What is their understanding? Not just to say, oh, well, they don't know racism because they don't have, majority white populations or a big white population unless they're from certain countries. Everyone in the continent knows what racism is, whether they admit it or not, or whether they call it that or not. So how do we also make sure that we take into consideration the folks we're speaking with and come up with a language that we all can understand that makes clear what anti-Blackness is in this country and has us on the one. And then the last thing I'll say is that Stephen A. Smith, from what I know, is multi-generational. But Clarence Thomas, from what I know, is multi-generational Black American. And yet they are not on code in terms of what needs to be done for us to be free. And they have the background. So there are going to be some, in terms of the history, et cetera, they know the history. So there's going to be some people that for their own personal, selfish, whatever gain, are gonna go that way. We know that, right?
Well, hell, the last election, look how many Latinos voted for Trump, and individuals who crossed the border, who came illegally, who would now. Wait a minute. Not only that, I was gonna play this. Andrew, hold on. Listen, this is the son of Nikki Haley. Okay, this is Nikki Haley's parents came to this country through immigration laws that Black folks fought for. They couldn't get a job. Daddy got a job teaching at a HBCU. Mama was making clothes that Black women bought from her. But this is Nikki Haley's son about, who should be able to hold office in America? Guys, come on. Having an audio issue, so let me just let me see if I can I'm gonna reset this here, because this is a perfect example of what we call self-hating among individuals. And let's see if we can see y'all here now.
And there's so many different aspects to immigration that it's not just the migration part of it.
Okay, guys, you were wrong.
So naturalized citizens should not be able to hold public office. growing up here is a
Yo,
big part of understanding the country. We need to stop and limit the amount of foreign students that are coming into our universities. Some of them are spies, by the way, for foreign governments, but it's also just we should put our kids first.
Yes.
And we should also not allow dual citizenship because that's the stupidest idea. You're either American or you're not. And everyone wants to make it so complicated. That's the thing that I don't like about the past generation is they're always about the rules, the process, and regulation. No, it's really simple. You're just America first. People should have their loyalty to America first. And if they can't do that, then this ain't the country for you.
That's totally right. What about serving in a foreign military?
Oh, gosh, no, forget about it. You can't do that.
Of course not, right?
It's ridiculous. That idea alone is just insane.
Yeah.
Dual citizenship's already bad enough. But to serve in another country's military is disqualifying, really.
Of course. I mean, it's hard to believe it's even a conversation. What
Right.
about language? Do you worry that, countries are united by their language, and language is inseparable from culture? Language is culture in a lot of ways, but this doesn't seem like an English-speaking country anymore.
Yeah, especially when you go to places like Minneapolis, Miami, New York, which I lived there for a little bit. And yeah, I want to be able to understand everybody. I just do. It's my country. I don't think I should have to speak another language in my own country. I don't think anyone wants that. I don't think it's good for us. Not saying that you can't know another language. I think that's great
You should
to know another language.
It's good.
But to have anything other than English as the primary language in this country, not acceptable.
You're not describing the priorities of the modern Republican Party at all here.
No, but hopefully one day it will be. That's what I hope will happen.
So my sense, but you would know, is that everything you just said for the past half an hour is like basically what most young men your age think who are conservative.
Who are conservative? Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Who are
Yes.
conservative. So do they look at the Republican Party as representing them?
No, not at all. And that's the struggle that we face. And that's where the anger comes from.
Event.
Yeah.
And
Well, you know, his mom's name is Nikki Haley.
Right, but I was at a particular public event, and this nitwit was there. His mom was speaking, and he actually had some words for me, and I literally turned to him and said, "I don't talk to children." I said, "You're a child." Now, what's crazy is his grandparents were sitting right there too. They were all at the table, this Nikki Haley's son. So this is a perfect example. This is the grandchild of immigrants who are shitting on immigrants, and his little ass, his narrow ass would not be in the United States if it wasn't for immigration. But what he's saying is, oh, no, keep all them people out, get rid of dual citizenship. And he literally is saying naturalized citizens should not be able to hold office. So what he's saying is his grandparents shouldn't hold office. You got some self-hating immigrant children and grandchildren right now in this country, which is crazy to me.
Well, you got some self-hating U.S.
No, I get that, but it's crazy if your ass came from somewhere else, and then you get here, and then you like, they can't come. No, they can't come. They can't come. Like, how you think your ass got here?
And so typical because, again, her name is not Nikki Haley.
Nimrata.
Her name is not Nikki.
It's Nimrata.
Right? And so all of that is a part of this conversation, this effort to so-called Americanize yourself, which really comes down to this effort to whiteify yourself, right? To get yourself as approximate to whiteness as possible, which of course some people are going to be able to achieve more easily than others. And it's something that this country tells people to do. It's something that this country pushes people to do. And this country then tells you how that can happen. Even this conversation about language. And so this is the kinds of things we talk about, for example, at Baji. When we're talking about language, the pushback against language other than so-called English in this country is not just rooted or found when the conversation about immigration, it's also found in the conversation about Ave. right? It's also found there. It's this idea that if you speak something other than this American English that the British consider to be some kind of bastardized English, right? But if you speak something other than that, that somehow you are lesser culturally, that you are not quite as human as someone and as a USian that is speaking English, and particularly a white one, right? And so I think this is the reason why it's so critical, back to the point that was made earlier by your panelists, that we have the conversations to make clear what is the anti-Blackness that underlies everything that is negative, restrictive, violent, constrictive about this country. So that at very minimum, I can't speak for other people, but in terms of Black immigrants, 20% of the population, whether they be foreign born or people like me that were born here, Black immigrant rooted people, we have to be on the same page and understanding about the anti-Blackness of this country, about how it's impacted Black Americans, African Americans, but also about how it impacts us, and vice versa. African Americans need to also be understanding of how the anti-Blackness of this country impacts our home countries, for not just with the travel ban, but the extraction, the wars, the coups. Like, what has this country done to Black countries around the world? That is part of why people from Black countries are coming here. And then how are Black immigrants more detained, more deported, put in solitary confinement for longer periods of time, like disproportionately impacted in every way because we are Black people, whether we call ourselves or other people call us that or not, and therefore are going to be dealt with disproportionately. That needs to be recognized by our communities, and we become stronger as we recognize that.
Andrew?
Yeah, so as a first generation Jamaican American, this issue hits home, and seeing, Jamaica on this list would mean that I would not be here. And to say that my parents, who are both professionals, my family, who is a family full of professionals, are somehow uh, prone to be on public assistance is just not my experience, even when I go back to my motherland of Jamaica. So what I want to know is, considering this rhetoric and even the video that Roland, you just put out there, is there a fear amongst immigrant Black communities here about whether or not they want to stay? And also, do you see resistance from Black people from either African countries or even Caribbean countries wanting to even fill out a visa form or even try to come to America?
Yeah, so on the latter, there's a lot of fear. So first of all, there's just a lot of fear. You have people who actually are eligible for citizenship that now are afraid to apply. We saw that there were people that were in line for their citizenship to get sworn in, meaning they had passed all the tests, jumped through all the hoops, everything was ready. They already got stuff in the mail. All they're doing now is going to swear in. And as soon as the first travel ban came in, they were pulled out of line. Literally, they just went down the line, each person asking them, where are you from? And if they indicated they were
Literally
from a
snatched
country that
them
was
out,
on the travel ban,
snatched them out of line and told them to go home.
Right. Snatch them out of line. So of course, when you hear that, when you see that, then you say, well, I don't want to have that happen to me. So then people are afraid. You have people with green cards that are being snatched and deported. You have people who are citizens who are being snatched and deported. People who are asylum seekers in the process. People who have gotten protections under the Convention Against Torture that are being deported. So that makes people say, I'm not so sure that I want to fill out these forms even inside this country. And of course, outside the country, you have people that have filled out the form permitted. You know what I'm saying? They've been told you can come. Your green card is going to be ready when you get here. You fulfilled everything you're supposed to fulfill. And now they're being told, no, you're not going to be able to come. And we don't know if you're ever going to be able to come. We don't know what's going to happen with your application. So people are certainly frightened. It also, I'm thinking about how they're doing all these cuts to public assistance, to SNAP benefits, to the Affordable Care Act, etc. And this is also a way to try to tighten the noose on people, right? And to make it so that they can have people that they're excluding from trying to get that kind of support. But again, at the end of the day, and it's something that we know, we have to always tell our folks in terms of Black immigrants, at the end, even with African Americans, people who come here are not all, are not clear sometimes that the stereotype of the person on public assistance being Black is a stereotype that is rampant, and that there's nothing about your nationality that helps you to escape that stereotype. So we say that it's not about criminality, it's not about documentation, it's not even about nationality. That really what we're seeing here is an immigration policy, whether it's kicking us out, keeping us out, or locking us up, that is based upon race, and that is being used as the tip of the spear to expand the police state, including the surveillance state that is going to capture us all, disproportionately Black folks, including Black people who are Black American and African American.
All right, I thought I was gonna be done with this and go to headlines, but I gotta play this. Nana, I gotta get you and Mondale's reaction to this video. This is a state representative in North Carolina. Her name is Carla Cunningham. She's running for re-election. And the governor of North Carolina, a Democrat, has come out in support of her opponent. Other African Americans have as well, saying that she's voted with Republicans too much, and she voted with them on this immigration bill. This is a speech that she gave in the legislature in North Carolina. I can't wait to hear what y'all have to say about this. Here we go.
I am ADOS, American descendants of slaves. I am a Black American, and I am an American. I'm going to present my case in support of House Bill 318, as it is time for my unapologetic truth to be shared with all of you. First, as a people, we need to recognize that it's not just the numbers that matter, but also where the immigrants come from and the culture they bring with them to another country. As a social scientist report, all cultures are not equal. Some immigrants come and believe they can function in isolation, refusing to adapt. They have come to our country for many reasons, but I suggest they must assimilate, adapt to the culture of the country they wish to live in. No country is going to allow people to come in and not acknowledge its constitution, legal systems, and laws. They will not tolerate it. So do you think I can go to another country and set up my own rules to live by, use the language I choose, and then tell that country that you must speak my language? That's not going to happen, nor should it. As a country, the United States has been more tolerant than most other countries. Other countries are making it much more difficult to get citizenship. We have been naive. We have been exploited and abused by the different tactics to gain citizenship in America. It's time to wake up. Global migration in the past was not projected to be as it is today. We must establish new rules to address a distinct type of migration that we are facing in our country, state, and cities. It's time to turn the conveyor belt off and adopt a global migration suitable for the times that we're in. And that is not destabilizing our communities. See, it was my ancestors who came over as slaves, built this country with the strain on their backs. They sweat pouring from their bodies in the rice fields, the cotton fields, and the tobacco farms for this country. Lived as servants and was the footstool, I said the footstool, for far too many feet to step on. So today, if you ask me to line up behind another group of people to raise awareness about their plight, I unapologetically say no.
then Mondale. Donna, go ahead.
So
Guys,
there's so much there.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you're up. Go ahead.
So much there to unpack. And I think there's a couple, but I won't take all of it. I'll let Mondale do some of it. But here's a couple of things that I want to be clear about. I think number one, that there needs to be a recognition again of the pain that comes from the abandonment and the torture and the violence and all that this country has done and continues to do to folks who are African American. And I think that that must be not just acknowledged, but centered. And that is the position that we take as Baji, which is why we support reparations as if they were coming to us, even though they're not, right? We throw down because we understand that there are some things that are non-negotiable if we're going to have liberation as Black people. The second thing, though, is to think when you think about assimilation and the way that the sister is talking about assimilation, she's clearly not talking about assimilation into Black culture. She's talking about assimilation into the United States, which is where this ridiculous model minority thing comes from, right? Because people are trying to assimilate into this notion of what the US is saying you should do to be a good person under respectability politics, which definitely means that you shouldn't be acting like those Black people over there, right? And so we, if we want to honor Black culture in this country, need to not have an assimilationist view. We need to have a view that talks about centering the needs, the aspirations, the challenges that Black Americans face, because when Black Americans are free, we will all be free. And that acknowledges and allows, as part of that, this understanding that there is Black culture and different types of Black culture, some which is similar, some which is not. But there is Black culture, and that Black culture has a value, that we don't have to shed ourselves and become some kind of Black white people in order for us to be able to have a piece of the thriving that we should be able to have in this country. And then lastly, I'll say there's a conveyor belt, or this conversation of a conveyor belt that doesn't exist. It's very difficult to get to this country, particularly as a Black person coming from a Black country, even before the Trump administration. It is a really difficult process and not one that many can access. I think that's important to point out. And to say that many who are accessing it are because the United States, whether it's through war, extraction, political instability, as so many folks say, we are here because you are there, right? And so if the US were not in all of these countries, and if we were able to keep our vibranium for ourselves, we wouldn't have to go to these other countries. We're chasing our people who were stolen from us, or we're chasing our people who had to leave. We're chasing our profits that are being now taken up and made and into profits for these countries, including the United States. And we're chasing our products as well that come out of the continent and come out of the Caribbean, but don't benefit those countries, but in fact benefit people in this country.
Mondale, you're North Carolina.
Listen, thank God I'm closer, Roland, to Washington, D.C. than I am to Charlotte, where this woman is elected in. Here's the problem of stupidity. First of all, she's in a district that is 22% immigrant. And this video will be circulated. So this is probably her last time being elected. She's been a conservative Democrat for quite a while. Her working with Republicans to overturn or to veto the governor's ICE, or rejection of ICE in our state is absolutely stupid, and it also goes against the will of the people that she supposedly is elected to represent. We saw, the world saw what happened to ICE when they came to Charlotte. They literally got ran out of town. Literally, they were being ran into the woods. So for her to stand up and say she's representing her people, she's doing the exact opposite, actually. She's representing 38% of white people in that district that are Republican or that supported Trump. The tragedy I get from ADOS and the people who swear that they are American descendants of slavery and people that care about the blackness of our people is that they end up using weapons and tools that were created by white people for our harm. She sounds to me like a white supremacist. Her ideology is the ideology that supports making America as white as possible. She is the linchpin that Donald Trump and his cronies need to pass out this policy, and also to have people speaking in a term that it's not the banning of immigrants is not for the benefit of Black people. It is to whiten America so that white people maintain a majority that is their power. And she will not benefit. Her people, the footstools that she called us, have not and did not benefit from this. This idea of you need to stop destabilizing our communities is crazy to me. If she believes that the immigrants in Charlotte are destabilizing Black communities, then I would ask her which immigrants are running the institutions that are over policing Black communities. Which immigrants are running the institutions that refuse to provide adequate housing to Black people on Beatty's Ford? So she's doing a disservice to the 106th district in North Carolina, and I damn sure she just made me super interested in her district, and I will be trying to activate Black men to vote against her ass as soon as I get back to the state.
All right, folks. Nana, we appreciate. Yeah. Go ahead, Rebecca. Go ahead.
Roland, can I also respond to this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Like I said earlier, like how nuanced of a conversation this is. Like by definition, am I ADOS? Yes. By definition, am I foundational Black American? Absolutely. But being on code, you would never catch me demonstrating anti-Blackness and speaking out against my Black cousins in Africa, from Africa, or my Black cousins from the Caribbean or currently living in the Caribbean. That's not what I'm going to do. I would never cut a deal with white supremacists in a way that negatively impacts those who are of the African diaspora. And that's something that we have to talk about. It's okay for Black Americans to say, hey, I'm proud to be Black American. I'm proud to have my culture. I'm proud of the different, not just the trauma that I've experienced, but the positive things that I've experienced, have done to impact culture globally around this world. There is no popular culture in this world that's not positively impacted by Black American culture. But that said, what to Mondale's point, you can never be a tool of the oppressor, a tool of the master, because when the master no longer has use of you, they break you as the tool that you are. And so in this conversation, it's extremely nuanced. We have to understand the dissimilarities. We also have to understand the similarities. But in this current hostile political climate, we got to be on code together.
Yeah, and I think there's some truth. Like, I think delineating is not a bad thing if we're doing it to lift up who we are and to say what we are. The way I've seen people weaponize ADOS against other marginalized people has made me think that people that are using that label, those that are in the structure arm, they've weaponized. And I'm not talking about Dr. Darity from Duke, who has articulated a pathway and how we should be paid our reparations. I understand that, and I recognize that as someone who has traced his lineage all the way back to where slavery and before. But I'm also a vibrant person who understands that America owes more than just those of us who suffered through slavery and because of slavery, and we should not allow our ADOS delineation to put us ever against, like you said, Rebecca, ever against our cousins from other parts of this world that are all victims of white supremacy.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase, and I'm here with a very important message. We are at a turning point in the Black community where we must have equity in the apps we use that scale to billions of dollars. But this time, we own the infrastructure, we own the culture, and we shape the future. And Fanbase is the future. Fanbase combines the free functionality of Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube into an all-in-one platform built for the evolution of social media and monetization. With over 1.4 million users, that's real proof that we are shifting the conversation of tech ownership and equity for creators. So right now, I want you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. This marks a turning point in Black ownership of social media. If we don't take this opportunity to own social media right now, we will always be customers to our own creations. And that can't go on. So once again, go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. We must own the platforms where our voices live, our stories matter, and where our culture drives the world. Thank you.